another episode of Talking Pictures Podcast. I'm your host David, and joined with me as always, my co-host Brian. Brian, how are you today?
I'm great, David. How are you?
I'm good. We're here once again to talk about not any particular movie, but a topic this time. So we're going to discuss sequels that we think are better than the original. So we've each chosen 3 movies that we're going to discuss that we think is better than the original. We both know kind of what we're picking, so we can I think we both do kind of agree and disagree with some of the movies. So
Yeah.
a bit of a discussion. So do you want to kick us off? What's your first pick for a movie sequel that's better than the original? Now, actually, sorry, before you kick it off, we are limiting this to has to be a direct sequel. So you can't have Fast and Furious and then its sequel being Fast and Furious 5. It has to be 1 and 2.
Yes.
1-2 punch.
Pretty much a direct sequel was very plain, easy going.
Yeah.
It can't be something like what Mad Max Fury Road is to what the original Mad Max is. It can't be what The Shining has its quote unquote sequel in that of Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much just number 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the most simplest terms. And you'll understand what we mean by this when you hear what our favourite sequels are, better than the originals. David, I'll start off with Aliens.
Great choice.
Aliens was directed by James Cameron, and I believe how he pitched it to the studio was he had a whiteboard, drew Alien, as in he spelt it out, and then he wrote S, and then he wrote the $sign on the S. And,
Simple.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
I heard that story somewhere, so as I said, yeah, the rest is history. So Ridley Scott did the first one, and as a very self-contained, limited red shirts horror movie, the first Alien was. It was very atmospheric in horror tone. It was scary. It was disturbing. And, well, the people who were dying one by one were, mechanics or scientists just looking to get a good payday. Aliens follows an ensemble ragtag marine group of individuals, soldiers with big guns and big knives. And we have a great selection of characters, and we have a returning character in that of Ellen Ripley, played by lovely Sigourney Weaver. We haven't had Sigourney Weaver come back in her Legacy sequel. I think at one point there was going to be a 5th Alien movie that was just going to ignore other Alien movies and be the next direct sequel.
Similar to Halloween.
Yeah, pretty much so, and the first 2 Aliens would have been canon. But long story short, we just never got that. It looked to be promising, and why did it do it? I don't know. We're still getting another Alien movie from Fede Alvarez, which is interesting. I'll compare that to how we got Prey with the Predator franchise.
Yeah.
But on the topic of Aliens being better than Alien, we have more aliens, we have more guns, we have more action, we have more explosions, we have more scope, we have more special effects, we have more world building, we have more deaths, we've more monsters, we've more of a lot. The S in the title says it all.
Yeah.
And instead of going for the horror tone like the first one, this goes for a more action thriller, which is definitely much more in James Cameron's wheelhouse. I remember as a child, I might have watched Aliens in and out, but when, in the Extravision days, I rented the movies, I think all one by one or all in a selection, and I watched the first Alien, and I was bored. I was bored shitless until the alien came on screen and people started dying and I saw blood and yay, that's what I wanted. I was a child, I didn't know any better. But when I watched the second one, and yes, guns and action and shooting and cool characters, and well, yeah, that's what I preferred. And I watched it, and it was great. And ever since, by no means of belittling the first Alien movie, I just loved Aliens so much more. The ending was great. There's a big final fight. Who survives in the movie was great. I like that the robot in this one, there's a sense of caution because the robot in the first one was a villain.
Yeah.
And in this one, you don't know what to think, but he's actually the hero. And in this time around, it's actually a human that's the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is filled with a lot of actors where back in the day, they were just like character actors, typecast. And I feel like now, if they're lucky, they're casting sort of like, oh, that's him in that movie. Because Paul Reiser, he was in Aliens too.
Yeah.
Now he's popping up in guest appearances in Stranger Things and The Boys and Beverly Hills Cop, the new one coming up. So, Aliens, like, here's another great thing of why the movie's so good. Instead of rolling out with a big climactic action scene at the beginning, they decided to show that scene unfold from the perspective of those hiding back, waiting it out. Whereas the soldiers and the Marines go in to see what's what and investigate. And we see what's happening. Like we do see their perspective, and then, oh, there's something coming or something here. And then by the time the aliens start attacking them, we start seeing the attack unfold from the perspective of those who are waiting back, hiding, safe, watching it on their cameras. And that sense of like what's going on, I can't see it, and like you want to see, but it's scary, and everyone in it, they're all being killed. And normally, you see this in type of movies where people are being, killed, and like, oh, this is the scene where our main characters are watching all the rough and tough characters get killed. But in this scene, we have some survivors make it out. Hicks, Hudson, the cool young masculine woman with the big guns all the time, killing all the aliens. I forget her name, but she's the only other female woman. She's the only other female character that's not Ripley or Newt. And I just remember watching this movie recently, and that action scene where Ripley crashes into the building to retrieve the survivors. And then everyone's sort of like scrambling out of there, racing out of ammo, like after their sergeant was killed, and a good chunk of their comrades were killed. And there's this big guy, Drake, who's like, he's running backwards, but he's shooting everything that we can't see. And you just hear the sound effects of the aliens, and he dies as well. But like the lead guy, Hicks, shouting, Marines, we are leaving, or so I think it says Drake, we are leaving. I just can't point out. I think it's just goosebumps. It's like in the high intensity of the moment when he shouts that line, get in the fucking truck. I don't mean to swear, but like that is just so cool, especially for its era, and the fact that they're able to achieve that. And yeah, it was just so cool. Like that moment alone was great, and then we take a nice bit of a breather, and then there's a nice few individual moments where Bishop crawling through the pipe, which is so claustrophobic, and then the facehugger scenes with the hands in that room. Oh, it was disgusting. And then the end where they're coming into the room. They're into the room, but you can't see them because they've welded the door shut. I always loved seeing them weld the doors shut, which is a nice visual. Ceiling blocking the doors, and then you realize they look up, and what a jump scare. Like you look up quickly to see what's what, and a light shine, and you just see them all crawling in. You remember that scene, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was so good. And then everything just goes out of control. Bill Paxton, I loved his character in this movie. He was like the big complainer, but he wasn't one to like ditch his friends. He was there killing anything he could. He gets killed, and then this other dickhead who was like never seen any action, but he wasn't always an asshole, even though he died with one of the cool woman heroes, because you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, listeners, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not spoiling it. It's out for like 35 to 40 years now. Yeah. So I'm just talking about, like, you see my face right now, Dave. I'm happy with this movie. I love it. Everything I've explained. It's more action packed. It's more fast paced, and it's from James Cameron. When has James Cameron made a bad movie compared to Ridley Scott?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, James Cameron just hits winners.
Yeah,
like he just constantly is putting out bangers.
Could you imagine if he does another Alien movie? Because Ridley Scott came back to do Alien movies, but James Cameron is doing his own franchise. It's just, PG-13. But yeah, I'm content with Aliens.
I
being
think
better than
it's
the
a great
original.
pick, and for all the reasons you've said there, and more like the subversion of your expectations with the android being the good guy, and it's actually the humans that are the bad guy.
Yeah.
They want to take the alien back through a face hugger
Oh,
back to Earth and make
yeah.
a profit off it, and you're like, that's just disgusting. And then introducing new characters like Hicks and Newt even, it's and then Ripley herself, introducing all these characters and making you care for them. Whereas in the first one, it is Ripley kind of you hear the most about, and
Yeah.
you kind of feel like, oh, she's gonna make it out, 'cause she's the main
Final
character, the final girl.
girl.
And so then giving these other characters such personalities that you want them to survive as well, it just does a great job of like taking Alien and just making it better in every aspect. And I think that the best way to do that is to change genre, to go from horror to action. It's like, okay, this worked really well the first time, but what can we do that's different? And by changing the way it is, changing the whole genre is a great choice. And it leads right into my first pick, Terminator 2. Also directed by James Cameron.
We're on a roll.
He took Terminator, which was also a horror movie, the Terminator chasing them down. It is a scary movie,
That disturbed me. I know what shot you're talking about.
and
It's getting closer.
yeah, and that is like a genuinely scary movie, and it's an unstoppable force coming for you, like the alien.
No emotion.
No emotion whatsoever. It's just its only purpose is to kill you. That's all it's gonna do. All it's gonna do is kill Sarah Connor. And then, 5-6 years later, Terminator 2, and it's not horror, it's an action. It's just straight up action movie, and it completely, I think it's probably one of the best twists of any movie. Like, you genuinely, because you've gone through the ordeal with the Terminator in the first one.
As in Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yes.
the villain he is.
Arnold
in that
Schwarzenegger's
movie.
portrayal of him, to then come into the second one and fully, like, the whole opening sequence, you're led to believe that that he's coming for John Connor, and that
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick is the Kyle Reese of this iteration.
Even though his introduction and his scenes were somewhat menacing.
Yeah, it, like, in retrospect it is. Like, when you go back and watch it, you go, oh yeah, no, he's like punching cops. But I think that Kyle Reese also did that as well. Like, it is definitely
Yes.
played to be, oh, Kyle Reese, this is the new Kyle Reese, and the Terminator's back again. And when he opens that door and he stops and he looks, he recognizes him, even though he's never met him. He like recognizes him,
Yeah.
and he's like scared for his life, and he's like, get down, and he shoots Robert Patrick, and you realize, wait, hold on a second, what's going on here? And that Arnie is the good guy,
And that,
You're like,
and
whoa,
that- and that- not only that, Robert Patrick is not human.
and he's a Terminator.
Yeah.
And the whole then that twist mixed with the action, the high intensity of it, you get the reintroduction of Sarah Connor, and she's no longer this helpless girl. She is she is like the
She's got
action hero.
She can kick your ass.
Yeah, I'm afraid of her more than I am Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, she is perfect, like, a progression of a character, like, that's gone through this trauma and wants to protect her son. It's a fantastic portrayal of her from Linda Hamilton. It's brilliant. And then, like, it's so clever to take Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's this, in the first one, as the Terminator, as the T-800, he's a brilliant, he's an unstoppable machine. Like, you genuinely can't stop him. Like, you shoot him and he's gonna get back up. You can't get away from him. It's like, okay, how do we make something scarier than that? What's the upgrade? And it's like, okay, we'll make him the good guy, and then what he's up against is even tougher than him. So it's, you take the unkillable machine in the first one, and then you show, oh, he's struggling with this other iteration, and you're like, oh wow, that must mean that it's so much better than him. And it's scary. I think that the Robert Patrick Terminator, in a way, is scarier because of the fact that it can mimic the voice, and it can not only mimic the voice actually, sorry, but mimic likeness, and it can transform its body, and the way that he runs as well. Like it's he's scarier.
Not to mention, he's much smaller than him.
Yeah,
he's smaller than
so it's a different kind of intimidation, isn't it? Like
the run
when he runs and he's no stopping him, he's just like a robot running after you. It's like it's so good. And then throughout, like these bigger action scenes with the truck slamming in.
Yeah.
The bond between John Connor and the Terminator. It's so cool. It's genuinely like, wow, he's bonding with the Terminator, but Sarah Connor has the trauma of dealing with not this Terminator, but this face.
Yeah. Doesn't trust him.
No, doesn't trust him in the slightest.
And she acknowledged in the movie that this Terminator, this machine, this thing is more of a father than he has ever had.
Yeah, which is insane to her, because this face killed
his actual father.
His actual father killed Kyle Reese, and it's such like it's so layered. It's so, it's just it just builds. It takes what came before and it builds upon it. And it subverts your expectations and the genre itself.
It's a good character-driven piece. Mm-hmm. It's heavily layered now in its character description, and even I have realised now, just by you talking to us about that, like with James Cameron, what you did with Aliens, and now just moving on to this is just only more successful. I think I'd acknowledge now that Terminator 2 is probably a better movie than Aliens.
I would be quicker to watch it than I would Aliens.
Yeah. And it's funny, though, in your describing the twist that Arnie's the good guy and the small Robert Patrick, he's the villain. But what was the marketing like back in that day?
They revealed the twist in the trailers.
In the trailers.
Yeah.
So people who weren't following trailers because, YouTube wasn't a thing.
You might have got away with it.
Yeah.
I think.
But here's the thing. Me and you don't know what that experience is like, because it's sort of pre-ingrained in our heads before we had the concept of realizing what subverting expectations was.
Yeah.
So, for example, I remember watching T2, and I was watching it. My oldest brother was there, and he was saying, "It's around here I kind of thought he was good." And then I'm thinking, I suppose you're right, because he was bad in the first one. I just didn't put two and two together. It's like something you know before you realise you know. It's just like learning English. So that's a good one, Dave. I like that. I'd like to delve into another sequel that's better than the original, and I'm delving into the superhero genre. It feels like we're just going up into the chronological timeline of when these movies are released. I'm talking about X2.
X2, okay, yeah, interesting one, because like we were saying there with our stipulation, if you can't we can't pick, it has to be a direct sequel.
Yeah, so that's why I'm not picking Days of Future Past.
I would have picked that too. Yeah,
it's why I'm not picking Logan or Deadpool, even though those are standalone X-Men movies. It still is an X-Men movie. X2 is a direct sequel, and Jesus, I think if I tell you right now, it's probably the best one. Like Logan's one thing, but I like Deadpool more than Logan. I think I like Days of Future Past more than Logan. But X2 is
a good choice, yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I'm trying to think so far back as when I was a child. I was watching this on just regular TV. You can't remember watching the opening, but... Well, the opening, that's one thing altogether.
The Nightcrawler sequence.
That's sequence.
Great. Yeah.
What is this individual hamstrung creature of a yoke in the hallway? And he looks up. What's that on its face? It's not human. And he has the coolest superpower ever. I want this superpower.
Yeah.
Minus the vapors that he leaves behind. I want that. That is such a cool superpower. The tail is cool. The actor playing him does a really good job. He's more creature than he is human. He's a mutant. That's oh my god. I just reminded myself that the X-Men superheroes and the villains, they're not human. They are mutants. They are deformed in a good way.
Yeah.
And Nightcrawler was such a great introduction, and him being shot sort of awoke him from his mind.
His trance state, yeah.
Yes. And because I like this guy, but he's doing something bad. And then essentially the movie unfolds with House of X being attacked by men with guns. And I was a child, David. So I was watching this movie, and I'm watching this little boy that Wolverine had a nice moment saying, "I never sleep," switching the TV with his eyes. And Wolverine's, bonding with Iceman, and this soldier comes in. The kid says hi. What does the soldier do?
Shoots him in the neck.
He shoots him in the neck.
Yeah.
I'm a child, David.
Yeah.
I watched a man shoot a boy, and I thought he was dead.
Yeah. Because you don't know that they're being tranquilized. Yeah.
Yes.
You're like, what happened? What?
And then I was just watching Wolverine take everyone out he can. Storm and Jean are off retrieving Nightcrawler. The next de facto probable leader is, in that of Cyclops, is with the leader, Professor X, to visit Magneto. And they themselves are attacked. Cyclops is done dirty, and we don't see him for the rest of the movie either. So it's up to Logan, this guy who wandered back home because he's nowhere else to go, home to the X Mansion. And what's happening here? Well, he's just got to take charge.
Yeah, he's a reluctant leader.
Yes.
He doesn't want this at all.
Yeah, but he's just doing what he can. He's doing the right thing. He scares Bobby to death. The Pyro joins along, and Rogue doesn't want to leave Logan. And so, in that moment where... Oh, I love the moment where the soldiers are busting into rooms, killing, I'm putting my quotation fingers on because they're only tranquilizing the kids when they sleep. And that little moment where Kitty wakes up, she sinks through her bed, through to the floors, and she's running through the walls, and she's just being missed by the millisecond. I thought that was just a nice little moment. We don't see her again for the rest of the movie, but that little moment was just exciting enough.
And Colossus, when he stands up and turns the skin.
Oh, so yeah, I was building up to that. Colossus, I don't know where he was before that, but he walks in and they think they're going to shoot him. He just solids up. Nah.
No chance.
Nah. Colossus. This iteration of Colossus is different from the one in Deadpool. There may as well just be two separate characters, but this Colossus was like had the candle burnt so bright and so fast. It was just nice to know that he was there and taking out those guys. He says, "I can help you," to Wolverine, and instead of Wolverine taking Colossus with him, imagine Wolverine and Colossus fighting all those guys side by side, just something completely different. What we got essentially was different. He says, "Help them," and Colossus takes all the kids to safety.
Yeah,
a good, nice moment.
Yeah,
and then the movie continues on to Bobby's family.
Well, even before that, you get the whole Stryker coming in and Wolverine, who's lost his memories, he doesn't know who he is, has that moment where he kind of has that connection. It's like, oh, he knows me, and you get that little bit of a hint of what's to come.
You're right with that. I just feel like X-Men has sort of been like overdone with Stryker and Wolverine. I just missed that little bit.
Well, after the fact, yeah.
After the fact it is, but at the time, Brian Cox playing Stryker as sort of like a mentor, father figure. I can see like he's sort of trying to appeal to him, but Bobby puts the ice around him, and so what does he do? Oh well, sticks a grenade, a flashbang into the ice. He's willing to kill Wolverine, just because he's not what he wanted him to be.
Yeah, I think it's more so that character is wanting to. He knows that Wolverine doesn't have his memories, so he can trick him, and he can get him back without fully revealing everything. Like, he doesn't know, like Wolverine doesn't know that he's, and we don't know this either, we find this in a later movie, that he's the one that caused him to lose his memories.
Yes, but was that ever confirmed in that movie to begin with?
It was not in X2, no.
Yeah,
so we didn't know it, and neither did Logan.
But
so
it's one thing to think that's canon, but another thing to just... I just want to focus on this movie.
Yeah.
And I actually really did like Brian Cox in this. as the villain, even though we have the villain of the franchise in Magneto. But the movie, I thought the movie was fast paced. And we're watching the leader of the villains in that of Magneto join forces with the heroes of the X-Men minus their leader. They have to rescue him, and I like that. Of course, we've seen this before, and you always know the villains have an ulterior motive. Mystique and Magneto. He even has Pyro convinced to join him as well.
Yeah,
and I like that moment at the end where they're about to take off. They see Pyro standing there, and they let him join. He was an ally to them. Yeah, and I'm trying to think if the movie ever slowed down for me. I don't think it does. With Bobby's parents and his family learning that he's a mutant, like that's they struggle to accept him, and then his younger brother is like, he's jealous, I'd imagine, and he calls the police, and Wolverine gets shot in the head.
Yeah,
isn't that cool?
Yeah.
No, it's not, but it
is for us when you're like, oh, because everyone thinks he's dead, but we know, like, we know something that no one else knows.
And Pyro taking out all the cops.
Yeah.
When just before we see him looking at all the lovely family photos Bobby has, because Pyro never had that. And then Storm and Jean wished Nightcrawler, all our team now, they're at the ensemble, get together to break out their loved ones. And I like that Jean tells Magneto and Mystique to go, like, while she deals with Cyclops. When how can you trust? You have no choice but to trust them, to let them do what they do, and they do. Except he leaves Charles there. Yeah, Magneto's a dick. He's a dick.
He is fully for his own motives and
attacking. Instead of Charles attacking mutants, he attacks people,
non-mutants. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, Magneto's a dick, and he gets away, and that's fine. Save him for another day, but. The heroes prevail, and Wolverine has that final talk with Stryker. He stabs him in the gut, and he leaves him there. And Magneto has his final confrontation there with him, and then the whole big. It's not a fight; it's a flood, and it's a sad ending. Having Jean sacrifice herself for that in that movie, I actually remember thinking I never fully understood that how or why she died, because the way they shot it didn't feel like we're a close up shot on her and the waves just surround her, and she lifts them off to go. It was a good moment, and then you have them visit the president and say, we're here.
It's a great scene, yeah.
It is a good scene that freezes everyone in time. I think I've talked enough as to why I like I haven't talked about why I like it more than the first one. I like it more than the first one because it's bigger. And it's the sequel. And it introduces more. And we just get more of everyone. And the villain in the first one is likable in the second one. Magneto, that is. So I think, well, that's my.
I think you nailed everything on the head there. Like, I think it is just it's an expansion upon the first.
Yes,
like we're saying,
it's a perfect sequel.
Yeah, I suppose if we go chronologically, like we were saying there, kind of through the years, my next pick would be Toy Story 2.
Okay.
I kind of mentioned this in our Elemental episode about it was one of my favorites, but I think Toy Story 2 is better than the first one. I think that the like we were saying there, the expansion of the world, that it's not just in Andy's house and it's not just in Sid's house, that we go out and we see other toys, and it's taken the idea of what if your toys were alive, what would they do when no one's around, and you see that just it kind of exploded, amongst the, like, when they go to Al's Toy Barn, you see all the toys like just existing and being alive, and like there's no one around, and all
having parties,
all the Barbies are playing along. Before Gerwig's Barbie, there was tourist Barbie there in Toy Story 2, and meeting Jessie and Bullseye and Stinky Pete, and then the story of Jessie and how she was abandoned, when she loved what was her owner's name?
I can't remember, but
Can't think of the name.
the Pixar theory lends itself to being Andy's mom.
Oh yes, it does. Yeah, you're right. I can't think of the name though. But yeah, no, that whole sequence when she gives her up, when she used to play with her, and then she got older and she was playing with makeup instead, and she was under the bed, and then she got donated and all. And it was just so sad. And so you kind of understand then her want to be played with and her want to feel special because she was thrown away. And then Woody is also going through that because his arm was ripped and he doesn't think Andy will want to play with him anymore, so he's going through that struggle. But then once, and the only problem I have with the movie, honestly, is the fact that Buzz and Woody are separated.
Yes.
Because I love the two of them together, and obviously they needed to have the two separate stories. But then Buzz is like, him and the whole team of Mr. Tailhead and Ham and Rex and Slinky Dog,
all the men,
all the boys,
where are the men? The boys are back in town.
The toys are back in town. That they are going, and
no women.
No, but they're going and they have to save Woody, and like as soon as Andy, couldn't find Woody, he was going crazy, and they need to explain that to Woody. He's like, no, Andy still loves you. Like, just because you're a little bit broken doesn't mean that you're worthless, and I think that's like the good message involved in it, is that just because there's something wrong doesn't mean that you're broken, doesn't mean that you're not worthy of the love that Andy would have for him, and then everyone coming back together. But I know you disagree with me. So tell me why you disagree with me.
Why do I disagree with you?
Yeah.
I just like number one more than number two.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I think you answered it yourself, David.
Buzz and Woody together.
Buzz and Woody are together that entire movie.
Yeah.
And I was watching the final showdown of the first one when Buzz and Woody they defeat Zed and they thanks bye guys, and they go to chase the what was it,
the moving truck.
And it's like literally the last chapter of the 12-story arc on the road again, or back on the road, the road to home.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that Woody, he runs straight to the truck, he's so excited, and he looks back, oh shit, Buzz. And then Buzz like, no, go, I'll catch up. And Woody leaves to go help him, and the Buzz is gone, and then the truck's gone, and then they're there, and then I actually forget, how did they catch up? Oh no, they
the rocket.
Oh no, sorry, not there yet, but they do run up to the truck, and then Woody's caught up under the thing. But then before that, we saw Scud, the dog, look at them running, and he just growled. And as a child, oh shit, what's that dog gonna do? And then Buzz is sacrificing himself for that, and then Woody's not giving up. He's throwing the RC off, and then just the two of them together, and then the rocket, and you think they're gonna die. It's just cool, and I'm giving you reasons why I think the first one's better, but I don't want to do that.
I agree with you. Like I that's what I'm saying, is that my only problem with the second one is that they're not together. Well, and I would love to see just a Buzz and Woody movie together again.
Well, that reason is just one of many as to why I guess I like the first one more, because you have them together, and not only that, you have a naive Buzz and an arrogant Woody.
Yeah, they're at odds.
Yes,
and then when they do come together at the end, and it's good to see the relationship between them. Yes, and they becoming friends.
Yes.
And you would like to see then another movie where they are just friends.
Yes. I guess I'm not overly fond of the second one as much, because maybe I think it's the first time Woody is kidnapped and he's on his own. And he's with these strangers who are like, don't get where Woody is coming from. And you're introducing this whole thing about Woody that he seems like it's a welcome addition to his existence. Meanwhile, we're following Buzz and that, who are on their way to rescue him. I'm with them, and Woody, he's against that, And I get with his story arc saying that, Andy still loves you, and Woody doesn't want that, and then Jesse doesn't want that either, and Stinky Pete definitely doesn't want that because he's the villain. But I guess I'm more so rooting for Buzz in Toy Story 2 instead of Buzz and Woody. Now you can make the argument, well, do you like Toy Story 3 or 4 more than 1? I might like number 3 more because it's almost like a closing chapter.
Yes.
And I'm actually rooting for Woody. But the fact that Woody, goes back on purpose before anyone else says otherwise, as opposed to Woody deciding to go back before Buzz finds him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess for in the most simplest terms of a nice balance, a nice scare in that of entering Sid's house, looking through the bag, takes the alien out. That alien's dead, and then the cannibal scenes with all the toys that are disformed and that's my reasoning for why I like number 1 more than number 2. But I'm actually glad that you do like number 2 more. But then in that case, what do you feel about number 3? As just a quick side note, do you like number 3 more than number 2?
No.
No.
Maybe it's because of the fact of how much I've seen number 2 compared to number 3. Like, I love the ending to 3. I do think it's a really great closing chapter. I do really like 3, but I just prefer 2.
Okay. That's good enough.
Yeah. So what's your final pick for your...
Yeah, Dave, well, I think I'll stick in the superhero genre.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me take you back.
Spin me a yarn. Tell me a tale.
So I'm in a cinema in IMC. High up. My father and whoever else was there, in their rows of seats. I was in the corner. I'm up high. The steps to walk into the auditorium are below me, if you get me.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the movie. You know how Christopher Nolan movies tend to drip in their music and it sort of rises and you don't realise it until it's overstayed its welcome and it's still there. It's like as the music rises, my head sinks down to the seat in front of me and I didn't realise both hands are on the seat. What was I doing? I was sinking my teeth into the chair because I was so scared of Harvey Dent turning his face to reveal the scars. Holy shit. David, I shit you not. I was sinking my teeth into the chair in front of me. I was biting into it.
For fear that he was going to turn his face.
Because his face is burnt off.
So obviously you're talking about The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight. And that's Harvey Dent. That's Two-Face. Not even mentioned Joker yet.
Yeah.
But for a movie that has the Oscar-winning performance of the great Heath Ledger, his Joker as a non-main character, he's the main villain, but he's not a frontal character. He could only have not even 20 minutes of screen time. And with him being there, means there's so much mystery shrouded around him. He might tell you a story about his scars, but it's bullshit the next time he tells you. And you see a quick glimpse of his face, and that's it. And you just, he is a guy with a plan. He's not, he's not spontaneous in his life. And he is spontaneous in how Heath Ledger blew up that hospital because it wasn't detonating. Yeah, the explosion, the real life explosion that I guess no one talked about at the time that Christopher Nolan had, it didn't go off. So Heath Ledger, still performing like the method actor he is, went to keep pressing the button and he's reacting like so, dressed as a nurse. I remember my older brother, went and saw the movie, and there was because of all the hype of the media talking about the Joker, I would ask him, "Oh, what's the Joker like?" And he's like, "Oh, when he was dressed up as a nurse, and when he's telling your man why he's so serious, and and then there's another scene where the interrogation scene. It's so good. Think of it this way: Who doesn't like The Dark Knight more than Batman Begins?
Yeah.
You know, I remember I loved the first Batman, and to me, a Batman movie is only as good as its villains. And Ra's al Ghul is a pretty good villain. I loved Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul. I was so sad to see him die, and I hated Batman for choosing not to save him. Hated that, and even to the point of Batman throwing the Joker off the building. What is he doing? He's laughing.
Yeah. He doesn't care. Yeah.
Because he got Batman. He thought he got Batman to do what he was gonna do.
Break his rule. Yeah.
Yeah. And the music was playing at that scene. He said, "You know when I got your start? You wanna know how I got these scars? No, I know where you got these." Shoots the things at him, throws him off, and the music's just raising the height, and you just hear him laughing anyway, and you're thinking, "What the hell is going on?" And then, what you thought would have been disturbing maybe is just a body crashing to the ground. Like, that's the end of the Joker. No, we got one last scene, and we would have seen him again if poor Heath Ledger didn't pass away. But
yeah, I think I heard that he was supposed to be. I think the movie he was supposed to be in more scenes after that. But then even in the Dark Knight Rises, that when Bane lets everyone out of the prison,
yes,
there was supposed to be a scene where he walks past Heath Ledger's Joker in prison, and he decides, "No, you're still staying in here. That's not worth having you out." To, you know, wreak havoc on Gotham, so he keeps him in there. But you're right. I think that the Dark Knight, like let's face it, Christopher Nolan changed the superhero genre with the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, with DC especially, how many times have you read, "Oh, this is DC's best film since the Dark Knight. This is so and so's best film since the Dark Knight." Like, everything is compared to it. It's the gold standard of superhero movies.
I remember, you know, we're in 6th class and it's DVD day, and we all get to bring in a bunch of movies. And I remember someone brought in The Dark Knight, and the teacher looked at that, even though it was 12, she says, "No, that's too violent." She knew, and it's Christopher Nolan was making this in a time where no other IP was supposed to be having Batman. When Christopher Nolan, in the era of Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, no one else was allowed to be making their own Batman movies.
There was no shared universe.
No.
And Iron Man came out the same year,
yeah.
so there was no MCU, there was no DCU.
And Christopher Nolan was against that. And more so, this movie does not feature superpowers.
No.
So there's no Clayface in this. There's no Killer Croc in this. There's nothing of the kind. This is a very realistic, real as you and me right now. This is all real.
Grounded.
Yes, 100%. I think it's just as grounded, if not more grounded, than Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Yeah.
Because Robert Pattinson's Batman is a bit like folklore. It's a genre in itself, whereas The Dark Knight is very grounded.
Yeah.
It's as real as it is.
It's a modern. Yeah. It's you could see that happening. Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas with the Batman, with Robert Pattinson's The Batman, there's certain air about it that you could see actually super villain, like a Clayface, or
I hope there's not.
Maybe not Clayface, but like you could definitely see that, you know, creeping in some way.
Yeah, Jesus, the better not. And I like, you know, it's actually, I actually didn't realise this at the time either. What did I? And I always thought, you know, bringing in the Riddler as the villain for the next one, no, Bane was great. But the villain conflict at the end was Two-Face, not the Joker, and the music in that scene where he's threatening to kill the child. Oh, man, so good. And I always thought, isn't it funny that a lot of Batman villains just fall to their death? Jack Nicholson, Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
The Joker.
It's the way to get the villain out of the way without Batman directly killing them.
Yeah, just, you know, push them off and they fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always a villain falling to their death is probably my favourite way for a villain to die. Hans Gruber. All villains in the Rush Hour movies. Literally, in each one. Why do I like The Dark Knight more? I think you got me thinking. It got me thinking more about the performances from Morgan Freeman, Gary Oldman, and Michael Caine. Like just seeing those rock legends on the screen in their own way. Oh man, it's so good. And then Nolan has the brave and bold balls to kill the female lead.
Yeah, to kill the love interest, yeah.
When I heard that happened, I just... What are you talking about? No, you're not. That didn't happen. You're bullshitting me. That's not true. I knew it's not true. That doesn't happen. That's not supposed to happen.
No, yeah.
It happened. Oh, it happened. So... I think I've realised something about myself, David, is I just tend to focus more on smaller, detailed moments in all my descriptions for why I think these movies are better, as opposed to the grand, wider, objective perspective in why they are better. It's the moments, it's the little small moments that I love in movies that make it worth it. It's all you need. Yeah. So that's mine. Aliens, X-Men 2, and The Dark Knight.
I'd say my final choice would be Terminator 2, Toy Story 2, T2 Trainspotting.
Oh!
So I think that
had me going there.
Yeah, I was initially going to do Blade Runner 2049, which I do think is a better sequel.
I agree.
But I just, as I was thinking about it, I went, I actually T2 Trainspotting. That, I think, is a better sequel because of how good the first one is. I think that both films are fantastic.
Yes.
And I think that the way that T2 builds on T1 makes it just a fantastic sequel. And it could have only been done the way that it was.
Well then, does that not argue the point? Well then, therefore, the first one's better.
In a way, I can see where you're coming from. Like if I was to put
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah, like if I was to put one on, I would probably put the first one on. But if I put the first one on, I'd have to watch the second one. Yeah. Like I wouldn't just put on the second one. You need the context of the first one. Yeah. To really, really appreciate the second one. Yeah. But I think that it is probably better. Like, maybe I should have gone with Blade Runner.
No, I like that you've chosen T2 because let me tell you this, David. If I were to put one on right now, I'd put the second one on.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I would do. I'll probably watch the last half hour of the first one. The ending, the last act, from when they do the drug deal and they get the money, lack thereof, the pub scene, realising Begbie's just not going to change, and taking the money and the music. Yeah, so you've seen Trainspotting, Did you know, I watched the trailer for T2 before watching the first movie. Didn't realise it. I just know Trainspotting was something that my father loved, my stepfather loved. And me, being well versed in YouTube, I showed him the trailer. And I watched his reaction watching the trailer to the second one. I mean, Jesus, your man's back, innit? And, there's 20 years, Oh, God. And then, okay, I'm going to go see this with you. So we watched the first one. Dave, the first one's it's disturbing. It is. And it is disgusting.
It's tough. It's a tough watch sometimes.
And the second one is safe. I think it's more easily watched. I think it's more entertaining. And I think it's more welcoming for people who have heard or grown up, I suppose, with the first one. Now they get to come back with this second one here.
When we were talking about legacy sequels, like, it's very much like for maybe our dad's generation. Yes. Where these guys were that age, 19, when that movie came out. Yeah. And then 20 years later, we see these characters again, and you just see them, and they're at the same stage in life where our dads are. Yeah. And so...
Even the opening of the movie, like the upbeat, it's so upbeat. And then we see some of these characters still in jail, still junkies, failed fathers, failed lives. I did think that
someone at the end of the first movie walks off into the sunset, and he's still, you know, he's in a way he's still addicted. He's still having a shit life. Like, it's not just because the movie ends and he's walking away smiling.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's going to be a happy ending for him. And it's good to know that and see that in the second movie.
I did think they glossed over them trying drugs again in the second one too quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, all of a sudden after trying to get clean, now you're just back on the drugs.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think that's the thing, is that, like, for a lot of people that are addicted, like, you're never over it.
But they did it. The way they executed it was done like in cut the next shot here with the delivery of voiceover. Mm-hmm. But that's the only issue I have with that one. The fact that this movie had a climax where Begbie has a character arc with his family and with the way his life is, and he goes to visit the lads in the pub. And
nearly kills Renton,
So he knocks Johnny Lee Miller. Who did he play again? Simon. He knocks him out. Who's your man? Spud?
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes to fucking pray like the junkie coward he is. And Renton goes to try to escape for himself. These guys are not friends.
No.
They're just
thrown together.
Yes.
And they have been the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And then Renton's hanging, and what Begbie doesn't.
He's not going to stop. No.
But he tries to. He just pulls him and holds him. He's still wanting to kill him, but he's like, just let go. But the lads come in and save him anyway. Mm-hmm. And for a scene that was coming together so quick, well, I thought Simon was going to die. Mm-hmm. I thought, because he was loading bullets in a shotgun, I thought Simon was going to die then and there, but comes in Spud with a toilet and send him back to prison. And then the ending of the movie, the way the second one ends was like life goes on and there's no happy ending. Like, what's Spud doing? Like,
he's written his book and he's
okay, maybe something there, but it's no different. He's still a junkie. Simon's just he's just strolling along. Begbie's back in jail, and Renton, well, he's still addicted.
Yeah,
but
I think that's what makes it so good, is that it's a more real version of taking the characters from the original one, and then here they are 20 years later, and they're not as movie like.
Yes,
they're like very real, and it's like, okay, well, what happens when you do go through something like this? And it's like, oh, well, sometimes you do just go back to the way your life was, and the Renton, like,
the life you may have right now is not a story. It's not a happy end. It's not a 3-act structure.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just living.
Yeah, and sometimes you go back to the way it is. Sometimes you do reminisce, like the fact Renton goes back to his room and he's fucking dancing along, you know, back to The Prodigy.
Yeah.
I
know the song you're talking about.
I can't think of the name of it, but he's just dancing along in his room, and it's like sometimes maybe that's just as good as it gets. That he's lived his whole life and he's gone away and he's come back 20 years later.
The fact that he's there with his father.
Yeah,
you know, his father.
Maybe that's for him. That's as good as it's gonna get. Is just dancing in his room to listen to the old tunes that he's listened to before, you know. And I think that's those two films together create a perfect story.
Yeah,
a great like overall story. So maybe it doesn't fit exactly into this genre of sequels that are better than the original, but I think that it is a great sequel.
Well, I would disagree in that little aspect. I think that it's better, but
for their overall arc.
Yeah, it's just funny. I think people love the first one more. You know, it's like, the first one is not as good as the first one. I think it's quite popular and common for everyone to say, it's not as good as the first one. Whereas here's me, post T1, pre T2, and I can say I like the second one more. Which do you like more?
I think personally I would fall into the camp of the first one.
Okay.
Now, I've read the first book and I've seen the movie a couple of times. I did my dissertation on both of them. So I've seen the first one more times.
Yeah.
But that being said, every time I watch the first one, I go, oh, I need to watch the second one because I like that one so much as well.
Well, for the sake of this episode, the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I feel like I want to watch the end scene of that second one now.
To be honest with you, everything we've talked about today, I've been like, you know what? Maybe I should watch that. I want to watch Alien, Aliens, Terminator 2, even Toy Story, and
You're making me want to watch Terminator 2.
yeah, you're making me want to watch Aliens.
Yeah.
So,
Man, watch that scene. Man, that music. Yeah, man.
yeah.
This is a fun special episode. I like this.
I'm glad that we could do this one rather than talking about just the one movie. We get to jump around and talk about a few, so it was good fun. But yeah, thanks so much if you listened all the way through. We appreciate it. Let us know what you think are some of the best sequels. If you agree with any of ours, if you disagree, or if you think of any yourself. Remember the rules are that it has to be a direct sequel. You can't just jump around a franchise. So send them in. Leave us a comment on our Instagram at Talking Pictures Podcasts or Talking Pictures Pod. If you want to send it in by email, talkingpicturespodcast1@gmail.com.
We have our many episodes going across all your podcasting apps of choice.
Yeah.
We're not just on Spotify. We're on everything else you can think of. So you can find us all in the link below.
Yeah, go back and listen to some of our older episodes. We've talked about Oppenheimer, Barbie, The Fabelmans, Megan, Indiana Jones. We did a retrospective on the first 4, and then we talked in depth about the Dial of Destiny. We did Transformers. There's so many. They're all evergreen. So go back, and if you've seen any of the movies, just have a listen, and make sure to tell a friend as well.
The Godfather 1 is better than The Godfather 2.
Ooh, I actually agree for that, yeah.
Godfather 1's better.
I agree with that.
It's the best one.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, David.